It's been less than 4 months since Peter Mandelson was forced out of his ambassadorial role in Disgrace after revelations around his close friendship with international human trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, and we all thought that this time we'd be rid of him for good. But just like a bad case of COVID, he just won't go away, and this time he's back, penning articles for The Spectator. In his latest piece, you'd not be surprised to learn he's defending fellow Epstein associate Donald Trump, specifically his desires to subsume Greenland and his actions in Venezuela, and in it he makes some very dubious claims. Let's start with his opening gambit. Donald Trump's dramatic intervention in Venezuela has achieved much more than to bring a brutal, corrupt dictator and drug trafficker to justice in an American court of law.
Yes, that Peter Mandelson, the man who got absolutely yeeted from his cushy US ambassador gig faster than you can say Epstein's flight logs, has just crawled out of the political wilderness to deliver what might be the most savage takedown of European leaders we've seen all year. And here's the kicker, he's actually defending Donald Trump. I know, grab your tea, sit down, because this is about to get properly mental. The Prince of Darkness himself has penned a column in The Spectator, basically telling Keir Starmer and the entire European establishment to stop having a collective meltdown over Trump wanting Greenland and start asking why America doesn't think we're worth protecting anymore. Ouch! That's not just throwing shade, that's launching an entire solar eclipse at Brussels. And before we go any further, if you want more British political chaos delivered straight to your eyeballs, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell, because trust me, this rabbit hole goes deep. So, let's rewind for just a second, because the context here is absolutely chef's kiss levels of irony. Peter Mandelson, architect of New Labour, Tony Blair's right-hand Machiavelli, the man who's been forced to resign from government not once, not twice, but basically enough times to qualify for a loyalty card, was appointed by Starmer as the UK's ambassador to Washington. Controversial? Absolutely. Effective? Well, he did help secure a trade deal with Trump post-tariff madness, so credit where it's due. But then, plot twist, more revelations about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein emerged, and Starmer had to give him the boot faster than a dodgy kebab after a night out in Wetherspoons. Political career over, reputation in tatters, you'd think Mandy would slink off into the sunset, maybe write a memoir, do the lecture circuit, cash those checks. But no, because Peter Mandelson doesn't do quiet exits. Peter Mandelson does revenge. And what delicious revenge this is. While Starmer and European leaders are collectively losing their minds over Trump's recent comments about acquiring Greenland, yes, Greenland, that massive ice cube between Canada and Europe, Mandelson has essentially published a masterclass in I told you so, disguised as foreign policy analysis. He's not just defending Trump's Greenland ambitions, he's arguing that Europe's hysterical reaction is proof of exactly what he's been warning about, that the continent has become geopolitically impotent. Those are his words, not mine, but bloody hell, they sting. Writing in The Spectator, Mandelson drops this absolute bomb. Europe's growing geopolitical impotence in the world is becoming the issue now, and histrionics about Greenland is confirming this brutal reality. Histrionics. He called European leaders' responses histrionics. That's the diplomatic equivalent of calling someone a drama queen at a family dinner. The man is not holding back. But here's where it gets properly interesting, because Mandelson isn't just trolling for the sake of it, though, let's be honest, he's definitely enjoying himself. He's making a genuinely uncomfortable point that most European politicians would rather ignore. He argues that Trump's interest in Greenland isn't some random imperial fantasy cooked up between golf rounds. It's a direct response to decades of European defense cuts, to China and Russia making aggressive moves in the Arctic, and to the fact that Denmark, lovely country, makes excellent pastries, militarily about as threatening as a particularly stern letter, simply cannot defend such a strategically vital territory alone.
Mandelson suggests Trump won't actually invade Greenland with the Marines or anything quite that dramatic. Instead, he'll just wait for Denmark to realize that with Russian submarines prowling around and Chinese mining interests sniffing about, they're going to need American protection. And when that moment comes, the US will extract its price. That's not warmongering, that's just geopolitics with the gloves off. And Europe, according to Mandelson, is still playing by Marquis of Queensberry rules, while everyone else is in the UFC octagon. Now, you might be thinking, all right, but isn't this just Mandelson being bitter? And look, yes, there's probably an element of you sacked me, so now I'm going to point out everything you're doing wrong happening here. But the uncomfortable truth is, he's not entirely wrong. Europe has been free-riding on American military spending for decades. NATO members agreed to spend 2% of GDP on defense, and most of them have treated that target like a gym membership, technically committed but rarely showing up. Mandelson specifically calls out European leaders for piggybacking on American military dominance while making fine words about assuming their full military and financial responsibilities. Translation: Europe loves giving speeches about sovereignty and strategic autonomy, while America foots the bill for actually keeping the lights on. And now that Trump is openly saying, pay up or we're out, suddenly everyone's shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked, obviously. Here's the bit that'll keep you up at night, though. Mandelson also praised Trump's recent capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro as decisive, and compared it favorably to what he calls the hand-wringing and analysis paralysis of previous U.S. administrations. Whether you love Trump or think he's a sentient spray tan with a Twitter addiction, you have to admit the man doesn't do committee meetings. He acts. Sometimes recklessly, sure, but he acts. And Mandelson's argument is that in a world where China's building artificial islands, Russia's invading neighbors, and Iran's playing nuclear chicken, maybe decisive action beats endless diplomatic dithering. He writes that the post-World War II rules-based international order is crumbling, newsflash we know, and that Trump's decisive approach when faced with real-world situations is preferable to the hand-wringing that characterizes the UN and EU. Now, if you're a Europhile, which Mandelson famously is or was, that's an absolutely devastating admission. It's like Gordon Ramsay admitting the microwave meal was better than his beef Wellington. And here's where the political theatre becomes absolutely Shakespearean. The man who helped build New Labour's pro-European, rules-based multilateral approach to foreign policy is now essentially arguing that Trump's America First strongman diplomacy is what the moment requires. The cognitive dissonance is off the charts, but it also suggests something darker, that perhaps he's seen something during his brief stint in Washington that genuinely spooked him about Europe's trajectory. He mentions having a ringside seat as the American administration made sense of this world and how it is changing America's outlook and global role, and warns that even now, European leaders have not adjusted to the revolution underway. That's not casual commentary. That's someone who's watched the Americans game out scenarios where Europe becomes strategically irrelevant and realized it's not hypothetical anymore, it's the plan. So, what does this mean for Starmer and Labour? Well, it's awkward, isn't it? Your former ambassador, who you had to sack in embarrassing circumstances, is now publicly arguing that your European allies are weak, that Trump has legitimate grievances, and that Britain needs to wake up to a new geopolitical reality where American protection isn't guaranteed. It's not quite a revenge plot in the soap opera sense, but it's certainly Mandelson reminding everyone that he understands international politics better than most of Westminster combined, and maybe sacking him wasn't the shrewdest move. The uncomfortable questions Mandelson raises aren't going away. Can Europe actually defend itself if America pivots to Asia? Is Trump's transactionalism genuinely preferable to multilateral gridlock? And is Britain, perpetually stuck between America and Europe, about to get squeezed harder than ever? Mandelson clearly thinks so. Whether Starmer listens is another matter entirely. But one thing's certain, the Prince of Darkness isn't staying quiet, and his warnings about European impotence might just be the most important thing any British politician has said about foreign policy this year, even if nobody wants to hear it. Right, that's all from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.